Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. You can add protein cold foam to your favorite drink or try one of our new protein lattes or matcha. Try it today at Starbucks.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from okay to very high. Know your sleep score with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wrestling Draft.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Wrestling Draft here on the Wrestling Draft YouTube channel or wherever you choose to get your podcast in the audio realm. I'm your host today, Scott McLeod, and in a week of unwelcome returns where Chris Jericho made his return to AEW television, we are back once again, whether you want us to or not. We're here getting ready for a weekend where we will stand and deliver as NXT puts together one of its most thrown together stand and deliver, or may I say, one of those thrown together cards they've ever had with their upcoming weekend show, as we're just a few weeks away from the finale of this season. And if it wasn't clear last week, I think it's more clear who the winner is going to be this time around. But we can all hope for a great finish anyway. Let's make some sort of weird joke at his expense, but I'm not going to.
Hey, listen,
regarding great finishes, but David,
I was prepared.
Hello.
I was prepared to make that joke as well, but you took the words right out of my mouth there. I know we're obviously not on camera, but I'm in full traitors mode. I've got the hood up, and I'm like the Kermit the Frog meme where he's dressed like Palpatine from Star Wars a little bit. It's been an interesting week to say the least. I'm not going to mention coffee or Sri Lankan tea at all. I'm just going to mention the fact that I've basically had to have my shoulder readjusted because I've been carrying this season so much that, I had to have some muscles moved back into place and some nerves getting released. So, but you know what? People pressing my nerves is all part and parcel of being in the hosting chair here at the Wrestling Draft.
Well, you certainly press a lot of other people's nerves.
You know what? And I wouldn't have it any other way.
But let's look at the top three of the week. Tied for 5 points. We have a few people went down in third. We have Rhea Ripley, MJF, Julia. Yes, that's a three-way tie. I almost said Paul Heyman. He's on 4 points. Never mind. Yes, MJF, Rhea Ripley, and Julia all on 5 points each. Then we jump up to Last Legend, one half of the Women's Tag Team Champions, on 7 points. And then, surprise, surprise, not so unexpected to see him up here, Jon Moxley on 8 points. Once again, the top scorer of the week.
Yeah, Moxley again trouncing the competition. He's got a commanding lead now as the top scorer of the season, 53.5 points overall without the captaincy applied, primarily driven by the fact he's got 8 TV wins, albeit non-title, but TV wins nonetheless. The next closest you're looking at is Daniel Garcia, undrafted, and Obafemi, each with 4 TV wins. So it just goes to show how much Moxley plays a factor. And I wouldn't be surprised, if he went round 1 next season, given how many people are going to be drafting as solos next time around. So not much I can really say about Moxley. Lash Legend, though, climbing up the ranks. She's now closing in on Nia Jax's 36.5. She's just 2 points behind on 34.5. And she's now overtaken names like Nick Aldis on who's just going by appearance points alone. And she's closing in as well on other big scorers that we've talked about that in some cases have gone undrafted. Penta, Tekla, Kyle Fletcher, a lot of the sort of mid-card women's champions that you see there as well. So keep an eye on Lash going forward. So yeah.
Yeah. Last Legend on ending JP's team, 34.5 points. Second best performer on their team behind, obviously, WWE champion Cody Rhodes, who hasn't actually even been on TV in the last couple of weeks since the Angle with Randy Orton. But it's a hell of a run for her. And it's
I'm actually surprised the Vision didn't score at that highly, given that they won the World Tag Team titles from the Usos this past week.
Well, with the case of Moxley and Rhea, those both have captaincy applied. I think Lash appeared on SmackDown. I don't know if she can't remember if she wrestled, but she definitely, but one of the main shows this week, competed for the tag title. So I think appearances plus a title defense helped boost Last Legends profile in terms of making her into the top 3. Rhea, obviously, she got a win on SmackDown over BFAB because that's what BFAB's purpose really is on WWE right now. I mean, it's good for Randy and JP to have, like I said, someone like Last Legend doing so well here, and also Cody Rhodes going into Mania because, as we've mentioned, they had a horrible start to the season with that, with some people losing their titles. Looking at Moxley, obviously, I don't think Moxley will be used as an exception in future seasons, in that the past logic sometimes was, don't focus too heavily on AEW picks and then lead up to WrestleMania season. And there are, like I said, a few exceptions. And we knew going into this, I mentioned it several times, I thought Moxley is definitely somebody you need to get in this season because you never predict just how well he's going to do. And he often is in the higher bracket of scores. But even this season, even though most of these matches aren't even for the title, they're title eliminators, he's been getting still beyond what I thought.
Keyword eliminators. Just to
mention also, the results are out there. He's for Collision, which is tonight at time recording. It's already happened by the time you're hearing this. But he strike up another one over Anthony Bones in an eliminator. So that's just another one to knock on. And as of yet, his match with Will Ospreay is billed as a non-title match going into Dynasty next week. So even if he does lose, it would be bad for Moxley, the top scorer and captain on the Think Tank, to lose. But even then, at least it's not a title match, but it would still be bad for Moxley to lose for the Think Tank at this stage.
As if the Think Tank needs any more points at this stage, because Moxley on his own is nearly breaking triple digits with the captaincy applied on the Think Tank's team. And it's because of him that the Think Tank has got such a commanding lead, and the Vision's win of the World Tag Team titles has just certainly boosted that going into WrestleMania. So when you look at some of the other WrestleMania matches that have been announced, Charlotte and Bliss are now on the card as part of a fatal 4-way for the women's tag titles. So they've got a lot of firepower going into WrestleMania in particular, but not necessarily Stand and Deliver, which is happening this weekend.
Remind me, is there a rule that you still lose points in a multi-person match even if your person doesn't take the pin?
No, I think the person who gets pinned incurs the loss. I think if you don't get pinned, it's half a point.
Okay. I think it explains some of the half points we've been having this bloody season.
Yeah,
so what happens if Charlotte and Alexa? I don't see Charlotte and Alexa winning the 4-way, but you got to imagine, even though they got such a substantial lead, if Charlotte or Alexa, given they picked them singles, if one of them takes the loss, the final fall in the match, how that might affect the Think Tank going into it. And
they've got them as 2 separate picks, so I don't imagine it's going to impact them from a tag team perspective. I think as long as... I don't imagine Charlotte would get pinned. I think Alexa might get pinned, but I'm starting to think maybe Bayley and Lyra are only in there just to eat the pin.
Looking at the Think Tank team, you've got Moxley on 99 points. Then also the Vision with the surprise win of the World Tag Titles. Punk, obviously, world champion. Bliss and Charlotte, as we just mentioned. It's weird that the weird outlier on this team is El Grande Americano out of nowhere. And they even announced a thing for Mania between those two. And not of all the new matches have been announced. After last week, we were on here trying to speculate new matches on Raw. Just a bunch of stuff gets announced. And yet, weirdly, I was like, should you pick El Grande? Should you pick original El Grande? It's bloody Rayo and Bravo that have been getting the most success down in
I think it's Rio Bravo.
I thought Michael Cole keeps saying Rayo.
Oh, that's the Americans just saying
it's supposed to be Rio Bravo.
Rio Bravo, yeah.
But it's weird that those two are getting the most success. Multiple wins on NXT. They've got a tag team title match this weekend. It's amazing.
Pepperidge Farm remembers the New Catch Republic.
Yeah, it's one of the worst tag team names of all time, I think.
I've heard worse.
let's look at the teams, because also there's been some title changes this week I want to talk about. But at the bottom of the table, the Vibe Nation, Matt, look at that. I'll say Matt, look at that. That's Smith Allen. I've just merged their names together.
I nearly did a little Britain impression, but I thought no.
Gary Morrison wrote, so I finally have people to look down on as the people on 117 points, tied with myself and Tom on the Brock and Scott connection. Then we have Roscoe, 124.5 points. Then we jump up again to you, the West End Wine Lovers, 148.5 points. Then another jump up to Andy and JP's team, 163.5 points. And just a minor jump, a point and a half to 165 for the Jamesons. And then a big leap that they finally cracked the 200 mark. They've got somebody. Moxley, I think, is the only person at this point that's close to cracking triple digits just as a single pick. So the think tank of Stephen and Gary have been running away with it. Moxley being a big part of that.
Well, just to put into perspective, the think tank has almost double the points that No Vibe Nation has, and it's been a very bad week for No Vibe Nation because they got yeeted to death when the Usos dropped the tag titles to the Vision. Funnily enough, helped by the think tank. So yeah, very, very bad week for them. It's almost as if they have a severe lack of vibes in their team.
Although I think on this taped collision, they'll have another Will and Nightingale defense, which should, I mean, obviously won't boost them back up the table, but it's interesting to see how much they've fallen when they were nearly in third or fourth position, and then they had a tumble down the table. What's interesting for them going into WrestleMania, I mean, we don't know what's happening with the Usos now that they've lost the belts, but Gunther randomly got announced as Seth Rollins' opponent going into WrestleMania, so you got to wonder how confident are they? Because I think before we realised it was maybe Rey Mysterio, like whatever legend they put Gunther against, you got to think, oh, that's going to be another big win for Gunther. They're really keeping this career killer gimmick going. And like, to use an example here, and go with me on this, when Brock Lesnar broke the streak and then he won the title like shortly afterwards when he squashed Cena, I think the point of that was the person that eventually beats Brock was meant to get a big boost because he beat the guy that beat The Undertaker. And they wanted that to go with someone they could build the company around. Also, they originally wanted that to be Roman Reigns in 2015, and we know how that ended up. Surely a similar thing should be like the guy who retired Goldberg, John Cena, AJ Styles. Like eventually somebody up and coming, somebody they really want to build up to be a main eventer should be the person to beat Gunther after this run. If I had a list of people who don't need to beat Gunther at this point, Seth Rollins is right near the top.
Well, to be honest, I think their backs are against the wall a little bit, given the Vision completely fell apart with injuries and stuff. And I think they're just kind of throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks, because they can't have two of their big names off the card by that point. And I think they're sort of being a bit more conservative with Braun Breaker for this angle. I think they might just save the Breaker-Rollins feud for after Mania, but for now they're just sort of, putting something to give them both a match on the card. But you did mention the matches that have been announced this week. Obviously, Gunther, Seth Rollins being one of them. Becky Lynch, their lowest scorer and also their captain, just FYI. She's got a rematch with AJ Lee for the Intercontinental Championship. And I don't know if this is entirely true or not, but I've seen a few articles state that we might get LA Knight and the Usos versus The Vision and iShow Speed, who, for those of you that don't know, he's like a very successful YouTuber. He's got a whole bunch of subscribers. He actually even competed in the 2025.
The guy who got killed by Braun Breaker a year ago.
Who Braun Breaker who just absolutely broke in half. It was hilarious to watch. But yeah, there is a chance that because iShow Speed got involved in the World Tag Team title match this past week on Raw, he might get slotted into a 6-person match just to have that sort of celebrity involvement, I think, this time around. But it's not been confirmed, but there has been some speculation, and it's also because they were considered to be a part of the Sidemen charity match, which happens on the same day as night one of WrestleMania, and they basically said neither of them could do it, even though they have done it in the past. So my thinking is they're both going to be involved in this match in some capacity.
I'll be honest with you, David. There is few matches I'd like to see less at WrestleMania than that 6-man tag you just described. I mean, when I watch on Netflix on a PLE, I usually watch on delay, so I don't need to have a piss break match. Even if I got 10 minutes delay, I'd still leave the thing played and go for a piss while
Wait,
that match is on.
why don't you pause it, go for a piss, and then just fast forward what was missed? To be
I'm
honest,
hoping if I'm gone long enough, I'll come back and the match will be thankfully over.
you know what? I would rather watch that than watch Morrison, Trish, and Snooki versus Ziggler and Lay from Mania 27. So, because I've seen worse celebrity involvement tag matches, but not to say like celebrities can't have good matches. I mean, just look at Bad Bunny.
Yeah, I don't think we should put Ice Speed on that level there.
No, not at all. But yeah,
title changes. Also, the Vision winning this week. You were a grumpy boy in our chat this past week after SmackDown.
Oh gosh, don't get me started.
Defeated Carmelo Hayes to win the United States Championship. So that
what a shower of shite.
You had a few weeks left to Mania, and Hayes just stumbled at on the last hurdles.
That ginger hobo had to get shoehorned into WrestleMania just so he could drop the title to Trick Williams. It's a absolute nonsense booking. And the fact that Melo's carried the mid-card scene on SmackDown for so long, he's delivered banger after banger after banger a la Sheamus, and yet literally tripped up at the last hurdle just so that pathetic underdog, quote-unquote, has to be made to look like second fiddle to the next rising star, Trick Williams. I hope Trick whoops Sammy's ass.
I love the fickleness of wrestling fans. I mean, I keep thinking of that Bryan Danielson clip, the fickle, that keeps going around from like 2019. Just like, because it's not as if like, Trick confronted Sammy's first appearance and as if this feud hasn't been building quietly ever since then. But like, we have 3 episodes of SmackDown between now and Mania. There's nothing to say that Carmelo won't get included into the match. People just saw that Sammy won the belt and then the match got announced and have immediately jumped on it. There's still a few weeks left to go. And again, I love that people are turning on Sammy, calling him Sammy Hogan. I don't think Sami Zayn's not the one saying, I really think I should beat this guy and win this belt. They were doing it to him when he didn't lose to Chad during the IC belt. But that was mainly because they wanted him to be the guy who put Braun Breaker over later on in the year so that Braun could win the title. And I don't think Sami Zayn is the guy who goes it really is important that I win the mid-card belt. Sami Zayn is not a politician. He just behind the guy on the receiving end.
Well, look at the track history. That's the second time in 3 years that he's done that. Like, the last one being WrestleMania 40, when we could have had Gunther Gable in the rubber match, but instead he gets the match with Gunther, Gable gets left off the card, and then we got the amazing heel work before Gable became El Grande Americano OG.
Those are scandalous accusations. There's never been any proof that he is any version of El Grande Americano, and how dare you come and spread your propaganda on this show about that?
Oh, give me peace. I'm with Michael Cole on this one. Like, it's clear as a bell that one of them is Chad Gable.
Look closer. Look at the nipples. Way Barrett said it.
I mean, it's like beating a dead horse at this point.
Well, you had the Bella Twins also winning a tag match on the lead.
Hey! So that's right, they beat Bliss and Charlotte. Although, I think Nikki had a bit of an injury scare.
So at best, a mixed SmackDown for you and Stacey, but I heard you want to make a bit of a change regarding your team.
So I put it in the group chat before Monday Night Raw, so it did apply this past week. But the West End Wine Lovers have confirmed that we have done a captaincy change. So we've taken it off Carmelo, given that he's been done massively dirty on the road to Mania, and it looks like we won't get any more US title defenses out of him. So we've decided to move it to the next big thing, not Brock Lesnar. I mean, the next big thing, the Rula Obafemi.
Please never do that accent again. Please, you're going to get cancelled. I'm leaving in a couple of weeks, so we can't have no co-host on this show. So that makes sense to me. Obviously, the big match leading into WrestleMania with that, he's your next best option because it's a hell of a gamble for you to put it on the Bella Twins. And when we talk about Stand Deliver, I don't have faith in either of your NXT picks. So
nope,
he is your next best option.
The Brock Oba feud is starting to really pile up, and maybe if Oba gets a squash match on SmackDown or somewhere, maybe on the build-up, it might be a nice cheeky win here and there. But I've got I've got all my chips on Oba to beat Brock.
Oh, it's not a bad shout. But Dave, we got to check out the listeners league because as slightly less competitive it is, even as the clear winner in the main league. There's still all to play for, and the listeners league. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, it's a battle for second place at the minute, whereas first place is starting to run away with it. So fifth place, it's Anthony Fitzpatrick with main league didn't complete it, mate. And then on 171.5, it's Nikki Preslin, Dwayne the Rock, Paper Scissors, someone who's been consistently in the top 5, as is Stacey Love with Say Their Name. 172.5 points, 1 point ahead of Nikki. Luke Scott with the bumps in second on 173. So it's very, very close between second and fourth at the minute. But roaring ahead with a 17.5 point lead, it's Lee McAteer with JP's Love Child. The teaming consists of Cody Rhodes, Lash Legend, Joe Hendry, Paul Heyman, Tiffany Stratton, and Dark State. And with Lash Legend obviously being one of the big scorers this past week, and Joe Hendry set to defend the NXT title at the weekend, I think Lee is in a very good position to score big this weekend, assuming Hendry retains the title. Although it's been rough getting Tiffany Stratton off the board at this stage, given that she lost to Julia this past week. But
it's just to make Julia look better before she ultimately loses to Tiffany.
Yeah, and I think if I was Lee, I would think about taking the captaincy off of Cody Rhodes at this point, but it's too late to put it on Joe Hendry at this point. I think best thing he could do at this stage is maybe put it on. Actually, no, I was going to say Lash Legend, but they could drop the women's tag titles at WrestleMania by this point. So, yeah, bit of a tight spot for him at this stage on where to put the captaincy at this point.
Oh, I see Anthony Fitzpatrick back in fifth place, back in the top 5. And I look at the distance between him and JP and Lee McAteer, JP's Love Child. I look at it and I'm thinking, so you're saying there's a chance?
Well, he's got the captaincy on Don Callis for Anthony Fitzpatrick's team, but his boost was obviously from the Vision's tag team title win this past week, and couple that with Paul Heyman's appearances alongside that. It was a good week for Anthony, but I think it was just more of a short, sharp burst rather than a potentially winning team this season.
Well, we go from that to a show that's usually kind of a surprise standout, like especially after people will say, "Oh, it was better in the black and gold days," but I thought some of the standing delivers we've had since the changeover, the white and gold, silver and black, or whatever you want to call it,
black and silver,
yeah. We had some really standouts, like the Mania 40 weekend where we had that great Josh Briggs, Obafemi, Dijak triple threat match.
Outstanding
matches Mania weekend, but they've moved this one away from Mania weekend and given us the most slapdash thrown together. Like, I look at this card, there are 7 matches, including the pre-show match, right? I care about Sol versus Zarya because I'm glad they're finally having a match.
Yep, same.
I'm invested in the women's triple threat because both Lola and Kenogwe have cases that he should get the title. Other than that, couldn't give a shit. Couldn't give two shining shits about anything else on this slapdash thrown together card.
I'm curious about the Fatal 4-Way. I think that's going to be an underrated banger.
This would be quite an interesting 3-way with Ricky and Ethan struggling to get along when they're supposed to be friends. But I thought, what would make this worse? Let's add Tony D'Angelo, who's giving his, I'm sad and I've got a big beard now.
I reckon Tony D'Angelo is probably going to win the championship at some point, and he might be the one to send Joe Hendry to the main roster.
Oh, good God.
Maybe it might not be now, but I think somewhere down the line it will happen.
2.0 didn't kill NXT. Fucking Tony D'Angelo as champion will.
Oh, gosh. Please don't remind me about NXT 2.0. That was a dark time, despite it being covered in every colour under the sun.
Looking at the show, obviously Sol Ruka is on Gary and Robert Shaw's team. I think there's a strong case for her to get the win, but I wouldn't entirely guarantee that for them, because I think this is just the start of a feud between those two, and it's just a case of where they ultimately want to go will depend on. I think more and more people are turning on going to Zarya's side, and turning against Sol. So if they want to do some sort of double turn, Sol gets the win, and then eventually Zarya beats her. It would benefit the people very much.
I want to be on Zaria's side for this one, I reckon. And I'd like to see her get drafted next season as well. I think she's been massively overlooked for a couple of seasons now. But I reckon somewhere down the line, I think she could win the NXT Women's Championship. I mean, she has aura about her, that's for sure. I think she just needs solid, strong booking, make her look like an absolute monster. Because I think that's what the NXT Women's Division has been missing for a long time. You know, you've had Asuka, you know, the undefeated Empress. You had Shayna, like, just literally run rampant throughout everyone. And then you had Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez, you know, the giants, as it were. And then I think Zarya is that next best option in this case.
Also, you got Joe Hendry, who's on the Jameson team. I don't think he's going to lose this weekend.
No, I see a retention.
Currently tied on 27 points on their team alongside Don Callis, with obviously their best performing player being Rhea Ripley on 77 points right now. Joe, I think, will then break that tie, move away from Don Callis after he gets a win here. And the only real other people to talk about, I mean, the original El Grande could appear with Los Americanos. That could give an unnecessary point to the bloody think tank as if they needed it. But you have JC Jane and Ethan Page.
Oh, wait, hang on. No, that won't work because Rio and Bravo are with Kaiser Americano, not the OG one.
Well, if they got the OG one, all I can see here is El Grande. Didn't say original on my sheet.
Oh,
here.
no, they Think Tank have got OG El Grande, which is the Chad version. The Ludwig version has Rio and Bravo.
Well, there you can still pop up. But anyway, the point is, you know, I don't see Ethan Page win the title because I think they said something about a run in the main event, not a run with the title before he gets called up. So I think if you're going to draft Ethan Page next season, have that in mind of the potential call up for him. Maybe they'll come back with Chelsea Green. But JC Jane as well on 26.5 points. I really think this is the end point here because you got Kendall Gray, who's in a short amount of time has built a lot of fan support. You know, she made the Evolve belt rather than have anyone beat her. So I think that shows that NXT wants to keep her strong. But at the same time, Lola Vice has been like one of the best people and most over people in NXT who hasn't won a belt yet.
Yeah.
By this, I think Lola Vice should have been the inaugural North American champion and not that robot called Kalani Jordan.
Hey, come on, Kalani Jordan's fine. You know, I think she was
a glowing endorsement there. She's fine.
But no, with the NXT Women's Championship, if I was to bet any championship to change hands on this show, it would be this one. I think JC Jane could potentially be called up to sort of add something new to quite a paper-thin women's division on SmackDown, I think, possibly. And as you said, you know, Kendall Gray, Lola Vice, massive fan support. I think one of them is going to probably walk away with the title.
Yeah, if I had to go either way, I'd say it should be Lola because there's only so much you can say. Oh, here, she does MMA, she does underground matches. Look, this is her in AAA. But like, when you actually look at her in NXT in terms of big NXT matches involving titles, her record doesn't look great. So I think she really needs this, even if it's just for a couple months.
That's why I'm leaning more towards Kendall Gray for the win here. You know, the underdog from Evolve, you know, they put on a banger of a match this past week, and I think if those two are gonna feud even more, you know, get some more matches like that out of the two of them, I reckon Lola Vice would be better as a heel, and then she could adopt that MMA persona style a bit more. So
really, it's a nervous kind of night for you and Stacey because I don't think you want to lose any more points at this stage.
No,
Joe Hendry, even though the gap is quite wide, make it just a little bit smaller for the Jamesons behind the think tank. But overall, unlike past years, I don't think this show is going to massively change things heading into the finale.
No, I think best case scenario for the West End wine lovers is that JC Jane retains and Ethan Page becomes NXT champion, which I doubt either of those is going to happen. As long as Ethan doesn't get pinned, I think we'll be happy with that. But the important thing is our stock is predominantly in WrestleMania matches. We've got captaincy on Obafemi, looking to slay the beast, and then Stacey's ultimate dream of seeing the Bella Twins win the women's tag team titles would be fantastic, just to finish things off.
one of my favorite things over this season has just been every week more and more you getting excited about the prospect of the Bellas winning a match at WrestleMania just because it would benefit your team.
Yep.
And it's just been, I don't know why it makes me laugh, but it does.
It's a joint effort, this team, and we just have to, we make choices as a team and we'll go with it until we are no longer we no longer have to make team decisions.
You just gotta hope you're not in the same room as Stacey if the Bellas win, because the collective sound of both your excitement that the Bellas actually won would possibly break the sound barrier. So,
Stacey's would at least. I would just nod in approval.
Okay, I was with her at Gary's. I think we figured Nikki Bell would come out the Women's Rumble, but when Brie came out as well, after we told an injured before that she would come out, and then she did. I'm like, oh, as far as Stacey is concerned, this might as well be the 1992 Rumble. It's greatest one of all time, as far as she's concerned.
Yeah, I'd agree. 1982 is good, but I'm
using that as an example of great Rumbles, and
I'll still say 2020 is one of my favorites.
Like I said, opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
Yep.
But speaking of arseholes, we're done here for another week. We've got 2 more episodes of the season, 2 more before I walk off into the sunset while sad music plays, and Dave is left to deal with some sort of temp going forward to try and replace me. I said, I'm more egotistical than I meant to be. But a couple of weeks left, let's make them count. Make sure to follow the Wrestling Draft on Twitter at wrestling_draft. Make sure to follow us here on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please rating, or review on your chosen podcast platform. Make sure you tell your friends if you think they'd enjoy a show talking all about wrestling analysis and numbers and all sorts of crap. And if they'd ever like to get involved in the Listeners League, do let them know they can do that. We'll be taking submissions for the Listeners League in a couple of weeks when the new season starts. But until then, next week will be my penultimate episode as a host of this show. Until then, I've been Scott McLeod. That has been David Hockney. Thank you very much, Steve.
See you next time.
Bye, guys.